Thank you and good evening. Now, people always say to me I need to be a little more light on the platform and engage in Pekong. I kind of realized over the years that that's not me on this particular platform. I have other times when I'm able to have lots of fun with all of my constituents. So I'll just get straight to the point tonight, because we have two critical issues that we need to understand in the process of this coalition, the partnership of which the COP is part of. Now, I'm going to discuss two things tonight: the importance of the coalition politics, and the relevance of the COP. Now, when you look at coalition politics, when we became independent, there were several things that we were supposed to change. One of them was the party form of governance, and single-led parties were not suited and are still not suited for the region because they breed all kinds of dictatorships. As you can see, we saw a little bit of it some years ago with our former Prime Minister. We saw 2 years of it in St. Kitts Nevis. This single-led party, by the very constitution within the parties, breed dictatorships. The other problem with the single-led party, haven't you always heard many opposition parties saying that when the government neglects our constituency, the opposition constituencies are neglected. We saw the Southlands for many years neglected of services that would have empowered the Southlands as they did within the North. Why do you think that happens? Because single-led parties focus on party matters, party loyalties. Coalitions, on the other hand, and by the way, the problem with this party loyalty concept in single-led parties is that if by chance, as we saw in 2001, 1818, and you choose to neglect the opposition constituencies, need I tell you anymore? Half of your country is neglected. And then you want to wonder why we have some of the social problems? That was why. Coalitions, on the other hand, the concept by its very nature, the emphasis cannot be on party loyalties. Where do you think the emphasis will have to be on? Country loyalty. And this is one of the strengths of the coalition. We have coalitions in the UK, in Canada, in Europe, and most recently in St. Kitts Nevis. But change is not a simple thing. It took the PNM 58 years to introduce a one-man, one-vote system. That's politics 101. The first thing you do when you form a party is introduce a system of voting where everybody has a chance to cast their vote. 58 years it took before they embraced what the UNC had introduced in its very formation of the party. And same for the COP. Change is a long process. It took us in psychology 20 years to bring the decency and respect to psychology in the region. But we did it. We did it because today it's the second largest discipline registered on the 3 campuses. Leadership in a coalition is very different. The criticism about our leader and the criticism about the Prime Minister, cabal controlling her. Coalition leadership requires a compromising spirit. It requires the ability to understand that you cannot have it all your way all of the time. And if you go into the negotiation process with 10 things that you want and you come out with 5, you have done well. That's what coalition politics is all about. And I have to say that our leader, it is his personality. May I add, I'm making a statement here on the basis of having written books in the area of personality assessment. Prakash, you didn't know I was assessing you. But I will say that his personality is measured. He's a gentleman. He is able to sit at a table and not appear aggressive and intimidating. This is the kind of quality of leadership that is required in coalition politics. So we are not going back to any single-led party. That has to be made clear. Now let's look at the COP in the COP in terms of its relevance. 50-something years ago, when our leaders throughout the region got together, they looked at what would be the problems as we approached the concept of independence. And they found that there were tremendous inequities in our systems. There were inequities, social, economic, educational. There was massive corruption. There was a need for constitution reform. And they felt that without all of those things taking place, and if you go back to the history books, you will see this well documented, without all of these things taking place, what will you have? An underdeveloped societies in the region. Underdevelopment. So to have successful societies, we had to accomplish those, remove those inequities. Government after government in the region, parties after parties have not been able to come up with relevant policies to bring this about. In 2006, up comes the COP. What do you think we did? We sat and we came up with the policies based on social scientific research in every area that were problematic and outlined in the 1950s. Every area. We came up, we looked at how do you bring about equity with respect to economic equity, keeping in mind that the catalyst for the problems that we have today stem from the inequities in our system that they recognized 50-something years ago. So what did the COP do to address the inequities? We looked at the tax system. At the time, the former government was proposing a tax that would have taken my house tax from $250 a year to $7,000 a year. That's just me. I say to you, we needed a tax system that would not disrupt people's lives economically in such an extreme. What did our political leader do? At the time, Prakash was the political leader. No, he was not the political leader, but he led the movement in the Axe the Tax, and it worked. The other issue was the unfair situation of minimum wage. For years, the minimum wage was $9 an hour. What did the COP propose? An increase in the minimum wage. As soon as the partnership got into government, the first thing they did was to increase the minimum wage from $9 to $12, and today it is $15 an hour. Still not where it ought to be, but certainly the recognition that there is some realization of the importance of increasing the wages. The pensioners also went up to $3,000. But then what else did the COP do with respect to this economic inequity? We understand that the concept of capitalism must not be limited for those at the top and the wealthy. So we expand capitalism to embrace that, giving opportunities for those in the middle class. In St. Joseph, I tested it. We took people who were on URP all their lives, who had no other income, helped them to start their small businesses from URP to what we call people, permanently employed people. Today, 9 years later, these persons have their small businesses and are striving well. Now, what did we do to address crime? A critical issue that our leaders of yesterday pointed out. Trinidad was ranked 6th as a murder capital of the world. St. Kitts was ranked 9th and Jamaica 3rd. That's 3 islands that came in. What did we do? We recognized that you cannot only have a military approach to crime. We understood that crime is driven by social inequities. And so we outlined a program of social equity. And if this is to be introduced in the format that we did in our policy in 2007, you will see a tremendous decrease in all of the social problems, not just crime. The concept of sharing the wealth, you saw that as recent as when the Prime Minister introduced the program for children. The early ages are the ages where you nurture children. All of these, as well as 1 computer per child, these were COP policies. In equity in education, we have an education system that speaks to the academic elite, a British education system that we inherited. How could that be right when 80% of our people do not go on to university? What about, as Dr. Douglas just said, the genius of the artist and the musician and the sportsman? Well, the COP believe in that intellectual equity. We speak to that. We did our research on it, and we are comfortable in saying that in every one of those geniuses, we are prepared to make industries out of the sports and the music and the arts, as we have in the academic arena. The issue of corruption that our leader said some time back that will cripple our society. What did the COP do? Introduce, as Dr. Tawari said, the procurement bill. Who was behind that? Who was behind that? Our political leader. The same for the issue of constitution reform that was necessary. Again, you heard most recently all sorts of constitution debates that led to all kinds of confusion, but constitution reform is necessary. We saw the right to recall. We introduced the 2-term limits. Those are COP policies. But where is all of this supposed to take us? It's supposed to take us one place: successful society, a nationally developed society. And if we can actualize all of what I said, and so much more that we captured in so many of our documents, you will see a much developed society, nationally focused on the interests of all. Now, I would like to close by saying this. Oftentimes we sit and we wonder what parts of our lives we really are allowed to choose in this world, and what parts of our lives have been chosen for us long before we were born. I think my colleagues like Prakash and I, when we were deputies together in the COP in 2008, and in my case up until 2009, we understood that the part of our lives that we chose was to fight for the equity of people, socially, in Prakash's case, legally, and in the case of the COP, in every single instance. And let me take any opportunity I get. I try to say thank you to my husband for giving me the peace that I needed to do the work that we need to do to bring about and serve our countries and bring about a more harmonious and nationally developed, where every person has an equal chance. I ask you tonight, the citizens of this country, please give the COP and our leader the same peace that my husband has given to me 35 years into marriage. I say to you, give him the peace for us to finish the job, to bring not just Trinidad and Tobago, because we are role models in the region, but to bring the region to the success and the development that it must be. I wish you all a good night, and I thank you for listening to me tonight. Everyone.